I got to say, that haircut you have is
You like it?
fantastic. And well, yeah, you're a handsome man. Everyone knows that. But the first the first thing I think of when I see your haircut is you look like the warden from Shawshank Redemption. You know, any minute I'm expecting you to say the word obtuse. That's what he said. Do you think I'm obtuse? You know,
That's an obtuse
that's
spirit, I think, on your part. Yes.
yeah.
Well, I got that cut because I just came back from Camp Lejeune with the Marines, so I wanted to get my Marine haircut. So actually, I got a cut, and I got a cut a little shorter than what I expected, but at the same time, too, it's so freaking hot here. It's got to be brutal where you are. Oh my God.
Well, we were talking about this before we went on air. The whole West Coast is on major heat alerts, and there's a hurricane warning off of California. I'm reading on the Weather Channel. So they're having 118 degrees in Sacramento. I mean, hey, look, that's what you do. That's what you do, folks, youngers. Marcus Mosey, you want to say when you get old, what you do? You worry about dinner when you're eating lunch, and you talk about the weather constantly.
Oh,
It's hot.
what are we gonna do?
It's 109 here, which is way above normal for September. But
Yeah.
I looked at, if we're lucky, we get in the 90s, and then right when football season starts. How you doing there, John? We're
Hey,
live,
doing
right?
good. Doing good. We are live. That's right. We're waiting on Jamie Valvano. Hopefully, she's going to be joining us. Said she would, and so we thought we'd just dive in and cover a couple other things. Hey, I don't know about you, but man, the U.S. Open has been spectacular. We are beginning to see the new stars coming on and being a part of it.
Yeah, we are. You know,
And there she is,
Jamie. Hey, Jamie.
Jamie
Hi.
Valvano.
Hi,
Say
it's
hello.
good to see you.
Say
Great
hello
to
to
see
me.
you.
It's good to see you. I got some celebrity lookalikes right now. I looked at you, looked at the images you on Wikipedia. You're a better looking version of Tyne Daly from Cagney and Lacey. Is there anything we should know? Are they doing a reboot of this thing? And who's going to play I forgot the name. Sharon Gless character.
Oh,
Look at her. And,
stop.
and, and check this out, Jamie. I'm a schmuck, but look at Daly. I was just saying before you came on, doesn't Daly look like, and everyone saw this movie, The Warden right now in Shawshank Redemption? I mean, we have a
That's my
celebrity
favorite
lookalike star on the
movie.
show. Unbelievable.
Well, people in my area who remember my dad would always come up to me and say that I looked like my dad, but I wasn't as ugly. And I thought, okay, that's not. Your nose isn't as big, or it was like this backhanded compliment. I don't know, but I'll take it.
Well,
You know what, Daly? She's too young, but because John and I, we talk about being old. All we talk about is the weather when we're eating for dinner, when we're eating lunch. But you also look like there's a great band, a female band, Daly, in the '80s called the Bangles. You look a little like Susanna Hoffs.
yeah.
That's a compliment. But you don't have the big nose.
Love it. I love her. Love
Welcome.
her.
Welcome.
All right. Hey, folks, thanks for joining us. Again, we are live right here now. We're talking to Jamie Valvano, motivational speaker and the daughter of the late, great college hoops coach and cancer fighting advocate, Jimmy Valvano. You know what, Jamie, it's great to have you on the show. We've been trying to get you for a while, and so excited to have you here. You and I met, it had to be over 25 years ago, at the Jimmy V Celebrity Golf event, one of the great golf events. I can't believe your dad's been gone almost 30 years, yet he still lives on with all of us. And thanks to you. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's we're getting ready to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the V Foundation, and that is just amazing. And when we first formed the organization, and my dad had this idea, I thought, maybe it would be around for a year or two, and things would probably then just fade away. And we are still going strong. We have events all over the country and a lot of premier events, and many of the individuals that my dad asked to serve on the board or to be a part of the organization are still here 30 years later. And it's such a testament to just that friendship, as well as just the legacy that my dad has left behind. And every day I hear of a story of somebody who's facing a challenge or something difficult, and they might watch the SB speech, or maybe they have a loved one that's facing cancer, or somebody who's a sports fan, and it's just astonishing. As being a part of the family and being a cancer survivor myself, I am just so grateful, just kind of all the gifts that he left behind.
Well, and for you also, because you had to battle cancer yourself. Talk about that.
Yeah, so if I'll always remember, obviously, the last speech that my dad gave was the SV speech when he accepted the Arthur Ashe Courage Award, and he was so sick that day, and a lot of people don't realize that he just had not prepared anything. I thought maybe he'll go up and say thank you and sit back down, and he kind of poured out his essence on everybody that was watching and gave this speech where we just thought, wow, where did that come from? And at the time, he said, the V Foundation may not save my life. It may save my children's lives. It may save someone you love. And then he sat back down, and there was this precious moment where he leaned over to me and said, "Did I do okay?" After hearing that speech, I thought, yeah, I think you did okay. So I always remembered that. And 13 years after he passed away, I was 33 and just on my own found a lump in my breast, was diagnosed at 33 with breast cancer. But because of research, they discovered that I had inherited a genetic mutation called the BRCA2 gene from my dad, and they treated my cancer completely differently. And so those words he spoke, "It may not save my life, it may save my children's lives," really kind of were so prophetic because it did save my life. And it was because of cancer research. And so just that he had the foresight to kind of, recognize that. And then just, as I was going through my own treatment and surviving, it's been 17 years now. It's amazing. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't thank my dad for the way in which he lived his life and the way in which he faced the final 10 months of his life, because he just taught me so many lessons that just continue to inspire me today. And so, I thank him every day because he really did save my life.
Right. I could tell you when the Raiders won their Super Bowls where I was. I could tell you, Jamie, where I was when Miracle on Ice happened in 1980 and we beat the Russians in that great hockey match in the Olympics. I could also tell you where I was when this molded me as a college basketball fan. I watch this, I get tears every time we show the video. You've seen it a million times.
Mm.
Just looking for someone to hug. That's the kind of person I thought he was when I was a 23-year-old kid.
Yep.
Watching that game, which was one of the greatest college basketball games. Your dad, to me, I never met him. Your dad, and John knows him. He seemed like the kind of guy that if you walked into a bar, he would have a beer with you. He wanted to talk to you. Is that true?
Yes. In fact, I didn't realize that until now, as I'm going and meeting people and individuals share stories with me, that that was what was unique about him, was that he was curious about everybody. He was interested in other people. He wanted to talk sports. And he knew a little bit about everything. A lot of people don't know this, but he was an English major and he loved poetry. He one summer read all the works of Shakespeare. He knew a little bit about art. Just he would read all the time. And so he just loved talking to people. And so, as a family, sometimes we felt, why do we always have to live out there so publicly? But that was really who my dad was. If he was walking on campus, he was talking to students in an airport. I never saw him get frustrated with anybody coming up to him and wanting to talk. And so that was really unique to his personality. That was part of his personality. And he really displayed to me, and when you show that looking for somebody to hug, that kind of has stayed with me because I am not an athlete. It skipped a generation. I do not have any athletic ability at all. So I was never really part of a team. But what my dad showed me is just that unbelievable magic that happens when you've got this united team that believe they can accomplish the impossible. And I remember probably, him coming to NC State the first year and telling those young men that they were going to win a national championship. And he was in his early 30s at the time. They probably looked at him like, yeah, whatever, Coach V, whatever. But he truly believed that. And he had it on, a vision card, and he looked at it every day, but he knew that he kind of couldn't do it alone. So it's almost this feeling like everybody was on his team, and that kind of carried through, in the last 30 years. I think we just keep growing the team over and over again, whether you're a sports fan or not.
Right. I'm going to show you a picture.
Go ahead,
John.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
I want to show you a picture because I look at this picture that I found, and because besides your dad, this other guy that was a good friend of your dad's molded me again in the love of college basketball. But when I look at this picture, let me caption it for you, okay? When I look at it, okay, this is your dad, Jim Valvano, handsome. I wouldn't count nose, but what it really looks like is Dick Vitale looks like Johnny Oler from The Godfather, and he's saying, "I'm sorry, the envelope's light, Godfather." Look at Vitale back there. Look at that look on his face. But that's a true friendship. And as Dickie V is going through his cancer battles right now, he always references your dad. Talk about Dickie V in your life.
You know, he entered our life probably in a big way when my dad left coaching and started to work at ESPN and ABC. And, you know, they kind of put V and V together and they created this dynamic duo, but they weren't, you know, super immediately close friends. And when my dad got sick, I remember he would be sitting in his office and he would be talking on the phone, but you could hear someone just screaming at him and he'd be holding the phone away from his ear. And it was Dick just, you know, yelling at him saying, "Don't, you know, you got to fight this, Jimmy," and all, blah, blah, blah. And they were, you know, screaming at each other. But it has carried on. So my dad asked Dick to be on the board of directors and he, of course, said yes. And he never misses an opportunity to share that, you know, what he's doing at the V Foundation. And it's so meaningful to him. And he really raises a lot of money each year with this event that he has in Florida, where he lives, for pediatric cancer research. And so he's been active and involved. And then we get the news that he actually has cancer. And we just are in disbelief. You know, we thought, oh my gosh, we're very close to him and Lorraine and his girls and his family. They're just amazing. And also Dick and his family really supported me through my battle as well. And so I started writing to Dick, you know, personally, just kind of stepping in to be my dad, and I would write him notes. And darn it if he wouldn't handwrite a note back every time. I was like, you know, Dick, you've got other things you need to worry about right now. But that's kind of the person he is. And he'd send me like a signed basketball. You know, I'm like, what are you doing here? But that's just who he is. And so I went to his gala that he had for us in May, this past May. He raised $10 million and he could barely speak because he had throat surgery, but he still was up there just talking about how we need to continue to raise money. And so when I look at that picture that you just showed, I'm in awe that 30 years later, I still feel like, even though my dad's not here, that friendship is as strong as ever, because it's just, you know, how many friends do you have in your life where if you said, "Hey, will you help me do something," 30 years later would still be doing it? And that's the kind of person that Dick is. And he is, you know, he's here for our family. People always say to me, you know, is he really like that? You know, is that how he is? And he is. It's hard to turn him off, but he's so passionate about what he's doing for us and so loving and so dedicated. And when he rang the bell to say that he was cancer free, it also reminded me that he's another person, you know, that we started the V Foundation for, was that it saved his life. And so we're so proud of there's a lot of charity organizations out there. There's, you know, a lot of things that you can give money to, but at the V Foundation, every dollar you give goes directly to cancer research, to doctors that are doing the research in the lab. And my dad loved being the underdog. You know that. He loved it. So he wanted to give the money to the individuals that are in the lab that are kind of like the underdogs and trying to prove, you know, those breakthroughs. And so I can't say enough about Dick. I cannot say enough about how he has just carried on my dad's legacy so humbly and so just passionately. And we just, you know, I love him. I love him so much because he has seen us through, my family, so many ups and downs.
No, in so many ways. And folks, you should check out the V Foundation website. It's really simple. It's v.org. Plus, what Jamie was just talking about is your donation can actually help the Dick Vitale Foundation to fight cancer as well, and actually give a boost to that as well. So again, go to the v.org. So it's v.org. And also, Jamie, I want to talk a little bit about your, well, no, before we do that, because I want to talk about your website and your motivational speaking, but because we haven't seen Dickie V recently, should we expect to see him back on air? I mean, do you think he's gonna be back on for this coming college basketball season?
Oh, absolutely. I think the only thing that would keep him from doing it would be his vocal cords. I think that with the surgery that he had, just the recovery time for that. And, he joked and said that this is the happiest time his wife has ever had since he has, in their marriage, in their long marriage, because he hasn't been able to talk. So she's just thrilled. She's like, this is amazing. But we want to hear his voice again, calling hoops. And he, like my dad, I think that he needs that in order. That's just part of his life. And so he is going to be back on air. I no doubt about it. As soon as he is, strong enough and using his voice, and we can't wait. We want him to be there, because it's not the same without him.
Yeah, no, we can't wait either. And just the whole analysis, or him just being on the court, or even being in the studio, was something we certainly missed. And that was the one thing I said. When I found out that he had throat cancer, I thought, man, cancer is really cruel. I mean, that's just the worst.
Well, he had a different kind of cancer. He didn't have throat cancer, but at the same time that he was going through treatment for his other type of cancer that he had vocal cord nodules that, then they felt could be precancerous. And so he kind of was battling two things at once. But yes, he had, his recovery was really challenging. And they, on the V Foundation website, but ESPN even has some great specials, just kind of, with chronicling what he went through, and his battle. And it's very inspiring.
Yes.
I watch every ESPN show in the morning, from First Take to Get Up. I go all around. I'm watching Skip Bayless on Fox Sports 1. Mm-hmm. And they still, the biggest legacy, you're talking about your dad's legacy, Jamie, the biggest testimonial to Jim Valvano is they still bring him up. And these are sportscasters like Stephen A. Smith, who 30 years ago, he was 22 years old. He never knew. These are young guys, some of them young, that bring up your dad and reference him because of the kind of person he was, what they've heard about him. And to me, that's the biggest testimonial and biggest tribute to your father.
Well, I think John and I spoke a little bit about, and I don't know if it's okay to talk a little bit about the movie that's going to come out, but I wanted to tell you quickly, because that, to us, he's just my dad. I don't really know sometimes, especially not being, people after about 5 minutes of talking to me, they're like, she's not really doesn't know what she's talking about as far as sports. So it's not, to us, he's just my dad. He's, my family. But over probably right when the pandemic started, we got a phone call from a production company that wanted to talk to us about possibly making a movie. And we thought about my dad's life, and we thought, there's been movies, there's been 30 for 30 on ESPN, not really sure why we would do this. And we really didn't, sometimes we don't even know who it is that's calling. And so I don't even think I was showered. Pandemic was rough on all of us. I had a baseball hat on, went on a Zoom call and thinking, this is going to be nothing. No, but nothing's going to come of this. And, the producer introduced himself from a wonderful company based out of Los Angeles. And he said, we're just waiting for Ray and we'll start the meeting. And I'm like, who's Ray? Okay, Ray, come on. I got stuff to do, Ray. Where are you? And next thing you know, Ray Romano comes on the screen. And we had about an hour conversation. I think I was in tears. And the production company that we're working with is called Game One Productions. It's amazing. It's done We Are Marshall, a lot of these wonderful streaming movies that are on now. The Halle Berry, who was just the boxing movie, but they really kind of partner sports and entertainment together. And Ray had a picture on his phone. He held up his phone. And he had a picture, split screen of my dad in his 30s coaching and him in his 30s. And he said, my whole career, I've always wanted to do a biopic, and I've always wanted it to be Jim Valvano. And the producers that he's working with are probably in their 30s, early 40s. And each of them went on and told stories about why they wanted to do this and how my dad had impacted them. And, then Ray's talking about his own personal story. I was in tears. I was so blown away by it. So sometimes I don't know what actually, the impact is until I hear these stories from people, and they knew him better than I did. I was 20 when he passed away. And they're telling me these stories, and I thought, oh my gosh. And so for the past about year and a half, we've been working on the script and working on bringing that to life. And again, it's just one more way in which I am in awe of what I can't imagine. I thought about what my dad would do if he was sitting across from Ray and Ray Romano was saying, I want to play you in a movie. I can't even use the words that my dad would say. They're not appropriate.
I know what you would say. I know what your dad would say.
Yes.
Don't whine like you do on Everyone Loves Raymond. Right? I'm a bombastic, vivacious character.
Oh, he's got his work.
Mom and Dad are going to come over again tonight. That's
He's
what
got
I'm
his work cut out for him. But the passion, and again, I just sat there and I was in awe of the fact, and I'm so excited about the project and can't talk enough about how it's shaping up. But again, that's, for an organization to come and young people that are sports fans, as well as somebody who has an established career, and for them to say this was, he said, I'm getting old. I've got to do this now before I get any older. And for them to talk about what his life meant to them, there was no way that I could say no. I just sat there in awe of what that was about. And so I'm really excited about the project because I think it's going to allow you to see the audience to see a different side of my dad that maybe if you didn't know him, if you hadn't met him beyond just sports. And I think that's the element of him that is why he's still talked about today, is because it goes beyond sports. There's so many lessons and things and stories that we're sharing, and it's going to be funny and heartwarming. And we're hoping that, we don't have a release date for it, but we're continuing to work with this company and beyond thrilled that a new generation is going to have an opportunity to learn about him and share a story.
So have you actually worked with the script or worked on the script or worked with the screenwriter?
Yes. So we have a wonderful screenwriter. He is from Indiana, but he lives in Brooklyn now. His name is Jim Strauss. And we've been working with him for the past year, as well as with the production company. And we are just, trying to hone in. I think that he got overwhelmed because he said, there are too many good stories. I don't know where to go with this because there's so many good stories. I mean, I think he was touched about some of the sports things, some of the relationships with other coaches like Mike Krzyzewski. And of course, we've mentioned Dick Vitale. I think those were some things. But then just kind of about, even the family aspect and the way in which my dad lived his life. It's, what is always so extraordinary for me is that he lived his life the same way when he was trying to win a national championship as he did when he was facing terminal cancer. So to see that, he was who he was, and he lived so honestly, and good or bad, I'm not saying he certainly wasn't perfect by any means, but it wasn't fake because he did the same things that he did when he was a coach, when he was fighting cancer. And I think that there were so many lessons that were revealed, to me watching him go through that the last 10 months of his life. And so to be able to share that with another generation. And we said when we were all brainstorming, we said, we've been through some tough times. We're still facing some challenges, and we want a feel good story. We want a feel good kind of story. And I think that it will be.
My concern is that, I hear so many people who have famous parents or somebody that has passed away, and they do a biopic on them, and they create these other controversies. Like I remember people talking about the Freddie Mercury movie, even though everybody, oh, it's really good. The Judy Garland one, they're saying, well, it's got a little bit more in there than what. So they're not trying to. It's really more of a biopic as opposed to here's a dramatic story of Jim Valvano.
Yeah, they really, Ray especially, which is why they came to the family first, because there's enough information about my dad out there that they wouldn't need to work with us at all if they wanted to create a movie. About 15% of it is sports related. So when we talk about some of the challenges that my dad faced as, a basketball coach and things that happen along his career, that's not really going to be the focus of it. It's really going to be more about some of the things that we've talked about today, his connection with people, the way in which he motivated others, why his legacy has continued, and a lot about the family as well, because, one of the things that we talked about was that because he was so open and was, just always on the go. One of the things I remember people asking him, why do you do all this? why are you a basketball coach? And, he was one of the first, I think, coaches that kind of became an entertainer as well and was on late night talk shows. I mean, he would have had a podcast now. He would have had all of that stuff going, but he kind of did that first and, kind of have one of the biggest sneaker deals that first started. So he's kind of was ahead of his time. And someone asked him, why do you do all this? And he said, because I can. And so whether driven by ego or just a passion for life, unfortunately, my sisters and my mom and I kind of didn't get a lot of time with him. And so there's, we talk honestly about that. It's not controversial, but it's certainly an honest look at the fact that when my dad passed away at such a young age, he thought he'd have plenty of time later to spend time with his wife and his children and his grandchildren. And he was just going to live his dream and kind of burn out and then come hang out with us at home. And so it was really tragic that, at such a young age, he was taken from us. I'm older than my dad now was when he passed away. And I know I'm still learning lessons and still growing as a parent. And, so I can't imagine, who he would have become. And so, there is that honest look at that as well, as we, are all challenged to balance that family and our dreams and passions and work. And so, no, it's not really, I mean, Ray definitely has his work cut out for him. But one of the things that he was most intrigued by, Ray said, was that it had taken him a lifetime to learn timing and to learn to be a comedian. And that when he would watch videos of my dad speaking, that it was like effortless. And he asked us, he said, did he rehearse ever? And we're like, no, we never, when he would speak at an organization or a corporation or in front of reporters, it just was this effortless, like as if he had rehearsed a set, like this is my set that I'm going to do tonight. And no, and so Ray loved that. He said, it's like he was a performer. And I said, oh yeah, he did that at the dinner table. So we know that to be true.
My brother Bobby texts me and says, the Bengals are in their Manic Monday summer reunion tour, and they're in Des Moines, Iowa. Get her off there because I want to hear her sing. Wow.
Talent. No talent.
Speaking of talent, I'm a football junkie. Look at my background. Your dad, when I found out your dad was a sideline reporter for the World League of American Football.
Yes.
When the Amsterdam Admirals played the London Monarchs, I probably watched that game in 1992. Yeah. Does your dad have as much a passion for other sports that he did like he did for basketball? Did you notice that growing up?
Oh yeah, he was a big baseball player in high school. Actually, that was kind of his sport. But he lettered in all three sports. His dad was a referee and a coach, and they just grew up. He would watch anything. I mean, it was just any competition, and he would make everything a competition. So, everything was a game or a competition. We would be walking on the sidewalk as little kids, and he would make it a competition on how far someone could jump over the sidewalk. He loved sports. He loved athletics. He loved what it brought out in people. And he was curious and, just an avid reader and follower. I couldn't believe how much he could remember. I remember, watching him at ESPN and watching him report. Yeah. I mean, he had such a joy and excitement for anything related to competition and sports. But yet he could be just as excited about, like I said, reading a play or, just he would recite poetry at the dinner table. It was like he was like this Renaissance man or something. I just didn't know where he came from. He loved humor. He loved comedy. So yeah, I mean, I think that I can't imagine what he would be doing now I remember when he did his coaches show at NC State, he was one of the first coaches to ever go around the actual campus and talk to the students. When you think about that, it doesn't seem like it's that profound now, but at the time people were just sitting in the studio and doing their talk shows. It was like he just had this mind that was always creating, always thinking, always, wanted to be doing something different. And so, yeah, that was his normal. He never was just still. I never remember him being just still and not doing anything.
and that's always the way I remember. Let me throw this in there because I remember him. A reporter asked him a question and he ducked the question. He refused to answer it.
Oh.
and that reporter was me, because he was in Las Vegas in 1992, and it had just come out that he was sick, and he was there at a UNLV game. I think he was working it for ESPN. And Ron Futrell, who is the sports guy, that we've had him on the show here. Ron's still a big sports guy in Vegas. And Ron was supposed to be there. And Ron calls me and he goes, I know you're at the game. He says, can you go get an interview with Jimmy V? I said, sure, absolutely. So I jump in there and I interview. And his first question I asked him, being a news guy, was about that. He didn't want to talk about that. He didn't want to go anywhere with that. He wanted to get into what was going on at UNLV and, the fact that they had, just won a national championship 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years before that. So, but no, he was great. And he was just a delight.
But we didn't talk about that at home either. We didn't talk about, the cancer or the prognosis. That wasn't something we talked about. And I remember when he was getting treatment at Duke Cancer Center, that was some of his favorite times when he would be struggling or in pain. And Mike Krzyzewski would come and talk about practice, how practice had went. And he went from being sick and complaining to all of a sudden he was like in his element talking about sports. So it did something, I can't understand it, but it did something to him where he kind of lost himself. And that's why I think it was important during the last year of his life that he kept working, because that was what he wanted to do. He couldn't think of anything else that he would want to do with his last year of his life. And, that's a big testament to how much he loved it.
Was he the kind of dad? I heard Vince Lombardi, famous coach, said it was so tough on me to watch my kids play Little League or Pop Warner football because I was coaching from the stands and pissing off the other coaches. Was you have sisters, you said you have siblings. Did you ever notice your dad screaming from the stand saying, pass the ball?
No.
No, good. He wasn't that kind of dad.
He was proud of whatever we did, whether we played sports or not. My older sister, Nicole, was a point guard and she loved sports and followed him around like, he was a hero, but he certainly treated his players different than maybe it's having 3 daughters. We were just always so affectionate being an Italian family. Everybody just were, people would be around us and say, too much kissing, too much loving, like enough with the cuddling, because when he was home, we were just always all over him. And then unfortunately, a lot of times when he would come to sporting events and such, people would be talking to him about sports and so he sometimes wouldn't even get to watch the game. But no, he was not. He was much more interested in probably our education and what we were studying. And, a lot of my passions being an English major and a teacher and came from conversations and exchanges I had with him. So again, to me, my dad is more of a poet than a coach. I mean, that's what I remember him for during my life.
Jamie, do you think he had a secret life? Because Strauss, the screenwriter, just emailed Daly Fish and said, ask Jamie if maybe Dick was a mafia guy. And Jim saying, you know what, Netflix is gonna make a documentary on us if we talk about point shaving.
It does. It looks exactly like that. The way
my God, that is so mafioso. I mean, Jim Valvano's private life on Netflix. Wow.
Oh my gosh, that would be great. Yeah,
that's great.
He would love it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. He's all about The Godfather and all of that stuff. I'm sure if we went back in the family tree, we would find some things.
Well, I'm sure with mine, I've got IRA connections, so it doesn't matter. Jamie, talk about your speaking career. The fact that you're out there quite a bit. You got a book. And folks, you should go to jamievalvano.com. You can also check out her TED Talk. That was just fabulous. Talk about, what is it you talk about? I mean, do you talk just about your dad, or do you talk about other things, especially your struggles?
Yeah, I think that it took me, I was always compared to my dad being a cancer survivor, and people would come up to me and say, don't give up, don't ever give up, especially when I was going through cancer. And the truth of it is that I'm probably the opposite of him in that I did give up. There was a moment where I was 33, I had 2 young children, and I was diagnosed with cancer. And I just thought, you know what, I can't do this. I'm just going to give up. I'm throwing the towel. And I was angry that my dad had given me this gene and that he wasn't around anymore. And I remember this shift kind of coming across me saying, what if I decided to live my life and embrace my life like my dad did and live in that way? And so one of the things that my dad had, you've probably heard this story if you know anything about him, was before we obviously had technology, he would write things on index cards, and my mom would find the little pieces of paper everywhere. And so my dad, when he was 17, he wrote down everything he wanted to accomplish in his career. And by the time he was 36, he had done it all. And there were things like, it was all about basketball, winning a big game in Madison Square Garden, winning a national championship. And he would keep this, dirty, dilapidated card with him, and he would look at it all the time. And then the second thing was he was always surrounded by a team. I never knew my dad to not have people around him at all times. And so, that was the second thing I saw. And the third thing was kind of that idea of persevering. And I just thought, when I was going through my own cancer, I thought, what would my dad do with 1 more year or 2 more years or 3 more years? And here my doctors were telling me I could survive. So, absolutely true story is I took out a note card and I wrote down one bold vision that I had for myself. It didn't have anything to do with basketball, but I said I wanted to see my son graduate from high school. And he was 5 at the time. So I had to last 13 years. And then I went about boldly assembling a team, just asking people to help me, anybody, whether it was, I would call people from our board or doctors or, just people to encourage me, and friends and family. And then finally, just when I grew weary, it was kind of reminding myself and kind of, channeling my dad and realizing that maybe I was more like him than I thought. And so it took me 13 years, but I was not only was there for my son's graduation, Jake's graduation from high school, but I also was asked to speak. And so that was probably the first big speech that I did separate from the V Foundation. I was very comfortable talking about my dad, and still am, and talking about the V Foundation, but I never wanted to talk about me because I just kind of always lived in his shadow. And so I decided that, after that speech, that I kind of had found something magical, this gift that my dad had left me, this magical way in which we can live our lives and we can achieve ultimate victories. And that moment when I spoke at my son's graduation was like my 1983 championship cutting down the net. I mean, I finally knew what he felt like. As I stood there, I thought I could take out my card, check it off, and say, this is what I had wanted to do. And it was just amazing. And one of my dad's favorite quotes was by a gentleman by the name of Reverend Bob Richardson. He said, God must have loved ordinary people because he made so many of us, but every day in every walk of life, ordinary people accomplish the extraordinary. And I realized that my dad had given me the tools in which I could live an extraordinary life. And so I wanted to share that. And I started to go out and speak at organizations and businesses. And especially during the past couple of years, as individuals were struggling with things that were beyond their control, I give all of my attendees vision cards, and we talk about assembling a team, and we talk about how we can be extraordinary and have those cutting down the nets moments. And as the years went by, and people would check back with me, I heard about people who had made, their president's club in their sales company, or they had opened up a business that they had never thought they could, or they had lost weight or gotten healthy. And it was that idea of living with intention, of surrounding yourself with people that are, helping you do your impossible. And then, of course, when I talk about and go to businesses and speak, I talk a lot about funny stories about my dad and things growing up, funny stories about myself. There's a lot of humor in there as well. But, I think that one of the things that I want people to know is every day we have a choice. We're leaving a legacy behind for others. And I am so thankful that my dad left these footsteps for me to walk in order for me to survive and to thrive. And he's with me every time I go and give a speech. It is amazing the people that I've been able to touch. And so, whether it's somebody who I have a child with special needs, I'm a cancer survivor, I've lost a parent, I have all of these things. And I'm not one of those speakers who stands up on a stage and says, well, I have it all together. Let me show you how you can, be your best and be, no. What I say is, let me tell you what happens when you refuse to give up. Let me tell you really what happens. And then I share stories about, a cancer foundation that's raised $400 million, or people that have overcome, or me being a 17-year survivor, or about my son who has special needs. And so it's real. I'm walking it, and I share that with them. And so it really, once again, I get chills when I'm telling you this, but it's just, I feel as if my dad is as much next to me and beside me as he would be if he was alive. And I know without a doubt, people tell me all the time, he'd be so proud of you. And it's like, we're doing this together. We're just doing this together, and he's helping me live my extraordinary life. And I'm uncovering all of these things, all these lessons that he left behind, ways in which I live today. So I'm blessed whenever I have an opportunity to meet someone, and usually they'll share a Jimmy B story with me, especially if it's in this area. And so I continue to just share the stories and the gifts and the lessons that he left for me.
Wow. Good stuff. We've been talking to motivational speaker Jamie Valvano. She's the daughter of the late, great Jimmy Valvano. You can check out her website and her book at jamievalvano.com. You can check out her TED Talk. Again, it's fabulous. You got to watch it. And don't forget to visit the Jimmy V Foundation site. It is v.org. Jamie, I can't thank you enough. We've been dying to get you on the show for a while. Thank you for filling us in on the upcoming movie as well, and everything that you're doing. Please tell your family that my family says to say hello, and we really miss you guys because we don't get a chance to get up to the Raleigh area, but you had a profound effect on our lives and us giving back as well. So please give them our best.
Thank you so much. If you come to North Carolina, you better come see us.
Trust me, if I'm in Raleigh, I'll be there.
And now, Jamie, my parting shot, now that I've exposed your dad as a member of the family, and you've given us this wonderful dissertation on what a great life coach you could be, this guy just chimed in. He needs some help. He gained some weight. He's having problems in his marriage. He's a big fan of the Bengals. He'll fly, he'll leave Tampa to go watch you sing tonight. He needs your advice and your enthusiasm. All right? So now we know a couple of things that Strauss could use in the screenplay. So please give us guys some advice. TB12 isn't working.
I can't.
Now that I exposed myself as an idiot, nice meeting you.
Love you guys. Take care, and we will talk soon.
Love you too. Hey, if I come to North Carolina, could I hang out if I come to North Carolina?
Absolutely. We'll make
you may regret it.
No, I'm buying.
All right.
Nice to meet you. Hey, if you ever get to Vegas, look us up. Look me up. All right.
So. Thank you.
My wife will cook for you. God damn it. All right.
Thanks, Jamie. All right. That was great. She's wonderful.